Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
I have a theory, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, that majority of us who grew up in America, North America speak exact, are conditioned to believe that money and people who have money are evil. From the type of characters that we talk about to how politicians talk about wealthy people to so on and so forth. Now, are there people who have a lot of money that make really bad decisions, that take advantage of people, that are ruthless capitalists? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there Bible verses for those of us that are people of faith that warn against the desire for riches for the sake of riches, that warn against the desire to build all of our treasure here on earth? Absolutely. But the case in fact lies that money, objectively speaking, is neither good nor bad, that it is a tool. It is a brick. You can use a brick to throw and shatter windows and riot, or you can use a brick to build hospitals and build churches and build bridges, right? Money is amoral. Money is neither good nor bad, right? Now, I've been bringing up these points on the channel, talking about everything from taxes, talking about everything from how we view money, the politicians like Bernie Sanders who talk about the millionaires and billionaires, and then he becomes a millionaire and all of a sudden he just wants to go after the billionaires. They changed the quote, right? So this notion that money is evil, I think, is so embedded in our society. And it's not what the scriptures say, by the way, right? The scripture says, for the love of money is a root of all evil. The love of money is a root to all kinds of evil, not money is the root to all evil. That's a misquote, commonly misquoted. And the fact that nobody really talks about the fact, nobody talks about this fact that 80% of America's millionaires are first generation rich, meaning they did not inherit it, they did not win the lottery, they did not get a loan or somebody gave it to them. They're first generation rich, they did it, they built the company, they built the net worth, they did it themselves. Or the fact that 60% of America's billionaires are first generation rich. 60%, okay? Billionaires with a B. 1,000 million is a billion. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. All first generation rich. Interesting. There are approximately 15 million millionaires in America. 15 million millionaires. Statistically speaking, you and I are more likely to be a millionaire than we are to have six-pack abs and be shredded in elite physical shape. Statistically speaking, about 25,000 people who are in elite physical shape. They're athletic, they're shredded, they got the abs, they're just cut up. 15 million millionaires. There's over 500,000 people a year in America who make $1 million a year, meaning their annual income is $1 million a year. The top 1% of Americans own approximately 400,000 a year, 400,000 to 500,000, depending on what state you're in. So when we look at all these facts and we look at all these statistics, another statistic, interesting one about taxes. What is a fair share of taxes? 1%, the wealthiest 1%, the billionaires and millionaires that guys like Bernie Sanders and folks like AOC like to talk about, the top 1% pay 40% of all the tax revenue generated. The top 1% pay 40% of all the tax revenue generated. 40%, okay? Some interesting things. So I don't think money is evil, obviously, if you didn't get it, but a lot of us do. So let's dig into it. I'm going to read some of your guys' comments. I also think to accumulate billions is morally wrong in and of itself. To be honest, even if you've earned it, to have that much money to yourself is ethically problematic at best. I don't know a ton of billionaires. I've maybe met one. Most people who become billionaires don't necessarily set out to become billionaires, right? That it's one of those kind of the timing of things and everything just kind of aligns, right? So this notion that just to acquire billions is wrong. And I'll get to why I think that's the shenanigans, right? So when the Feds socialize the stock market, that was okay. As far as I'm concerned, they can leave and it will make, okay, just by the way, if the rich leave, that's not a good thing, okay? That's not a good thing. The country was fed by the blood of indigenous, free labor, redlining, and the list goes on. All of that was true, by the way. America has a dark history. We know that. I've acknowledged it. I've acknowledged that there's, evidence for there being structural racism to some degree, right? Question is, how much does it impact us? I don't have the answer to that. The ultra wealthy had a head start. The ultra wealthy had a head start. Yet 60% of America's billionaires are first generation rich. 80% of America's millionaires are first generation rich. Yet this person thinks the ultra wealthy had a head start. I don't know what we're pulling this from. Based on what evidence? If you know your Bible, you know that this is the system of things, and who is the system belongs to the country. Here, I know many will disagree, but for some reason, everyone in this country benefits from the start of the middle of the story. I share multiple thoughts in one paragraph, so I know it's all over the place, but I personally don't care if the rich leave. They stole this in the first place. They stole it. They stole it. Yet 80% of America's millionaires are first generation rich. 60% of America's billionaires are first generation. How did they steal anything? How did they steal anything? If that's the fact. Now, is nepotism and all these things real? Absolutely. I'm going to give you guys some real examples of nepotism right now. And by the way, that's what we should want to do. We should want to become successful and wealthy for those of us that have the time, talent, and treasure, so that we could put our own people on, right? So that we could put our own people on. And in the next segment, I'm going to show you guys an example of that, right? But I think it's a very interesting, response to say this, right? And that's where I think we start getting some of these policies where we say, hey, we need to tax and make the ultra wealthy pay their fair share when they already generate 40% of all the tax revenue. Okay, what is their fair share? Well, according to the Green New Deal, anybody who makes over 10 million in that progressive tax rate, right now I think our tax rate tops off at about 40% for 40% for federal taxes. With the Green New Deal, they want to up that to 70% for anybody who makes $1 over 10 million. 70%. Now listen, I don't know if I'll ever make 10 million a year. We'll see. I'm not necessarily planning on it. I do have some specific financial goals I want to hit. But it's not really about me. It's just kind of like, what is fair, what is reasonable. There is some precedent to say that when we were charging, and by the way, America was charging people 70, 80, 90%. Back in the day, 50s, 60s, that there was less wealth gap inequality, right? Meaning that there was a less of a gap between the rich and the poor. Maybe because we were charging more in taxes. And I don't believe in trickle-down economics, by the way. So what I'm not saying is if you cut taxes for the rich, it'll trickle down to the poor people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm strictly speaking on what is just, what is moral, right? What is moral? And how do people attain wealth? Like, how do people actually attain wealth? What are the steps that go into that? When you're born, where you're born, the access to people you have, your genetics, but more importantly, and I talked about in a previous video of equity versus equitable, equal outcomes is not fair. Equal outcomes is not fair because people didn't put in equal amounts of effort. I should not get an equal outcome in what I earn to play basketball as LeBron James, right? Just because, and even if I did put in an equal amount of effort as LeBron James, which I didn't, I shouldn't get paid more or the same as him to play basketball because I'm not as good as him. And there's very few people that should make the same as him to play basketball because there's very few people as good as LeBron James in the NBA. Steph Curry being one of the few exceptions, right? So this idea, my deeper question to a lot of us is, where does opportunity come from? Where does these things come from? Now, is there precedent that historically wealth was kept and passed down generationally? Absolutely. Is there evidence that there were certain groups, black people in particular, that were prevented from owning homes, which is one of the best ways to build wealth in America? Redlining, Jim Crow. Absolutely. I'm talking about the here and now. I'm talking about 2020. I'm talking about the numbers that we're dealing with. There's 80% of America's millionaires, 60%, right? How do you acquire that, right? And some people would say, well, it's about education. It's about education, right? And I'm going to read another comment from you guys regarding education, because I don't know how much education goes into it. I think education is important, but I don't know how much it goes into it. Equal access to education, right? What kind of education? So I'm going to read this comment. This says, to say academic performance has little to do with financial performance is to completely ignore what's happening in poor communities. I'd love to hear more from you on this, and perhaps you'll change my mind. For now, I'd have to disagree. I don't see the link between academic performance and financial stability being absolute. However, they are linked, and there are stats connecting earning potential in schooling that can't be ignored, just as there are links between poverty and education that can't be ignored. My wife and my best friend teach K through 12 in the inner city they grew up in. Many of their students are children of former classmates they grew up with. They appear to be repeating the same cycle that their parents did, and it's sad. I know some will make it out. I wish it was easy giving. I wish it was as easy giving kids laptops and cell phones and an internet connection, but it's just not. Today, there are more unlocked doors for kids of color in economic situations than ever before in America. Serious points, serious questions. I don't have all the answers. What I will say is, from an education standpoint, I don't necessarily ascribe to believe that good education means you're going to become wealthy, because there are a lot of educated poor people. There are a lot of people educated with useless degrees. That is just a fact. A lot of folks got degrees that they're just not pragmatic or useful in the marketplace. And education has a cap. At some point, learning advanced calculus, advanced geometry, algebra, science, at some point that stuff doesn't have any value for you if you're not going to go into trades and skills that requires those skills, like engineering, coding, right? You don't need advanced stuff if you're saying, hey, I just want to make really good money. I want to make 150 grand a year, 100 grand a year, and go be a plumber, like blue collar work, which, by the way, blue collar jobs have completely plummeted as more and more people are thinking education is the right path to become wealthy. And to me, we're spending how many years? 2 years of someone's college education going over the what? The basics, the same thing we were taught in high school, right? And you have to go through 2 years of your prerequisites, English, history, math, government, go over the basics, and then you can get into your actual area of study. And I'm saying this, listen, we're all walking around with a plethora of information. Is it really useful to learn anything that you could just Google? Is it useful to memorize anything that you can just Google? Is it useful to memorize random facts about random things that have little actual impact to do with you? Instead, should we be teaching these kids how to do a budget, how interest works, how debt works, how leverage works, how marketing works, how the economy works? What is supply and demand, right? I spend an equal amount of time on 2 apps that are like my side hustles. They're my side hustles. One of them is GOAT. I flip shoes on GOAT. I have a Nike clearance store. One of the easiest ways: buy stuff at a Nike clearance store, pull up the GOAT app, punch in the code, see what it last sold for on GOAT, put it on GOAT. Within a few months, it'll sell. You could easily double your money doing that on GOAT. Easily, right? eBay has a feature now where you can go in and take a picture. You can take a picture of an item, and eBay will tell you, if you just simply click on last sold as, eBay will tell you what that item just sold for, what the last selling of it was. Robinhood, if I go to I've earned 22% in my Robinhood from February. I've earned 22% of my money in Robinhood. Okay, so if we're talking about upward mobility, I don't think kids taking more civics classes and taking more sociology classes and taking more history classes is actually what's going to move the needle. Because guess what? I took all those classes. And you know where I learned the majority of my financial literacy from? My local church. Discovering guys like Dave Ramsey, right? You know where I started learning more of it from? Investing. You know where I learned investing from? YouTube University. You know where I learned everything about video, the new stuff I'm learning about video, shooting and editing video? YouTube. Self-taught, watching other people do it. So this notion that, well, if we just educate people more, sure, educated people, good. But it's not the 80s or the 90s. We're not in the same climate. That if you want to make more money, you have to develop more scarce skills. You have to develop the skill to build something and create something, an app, a song, a YouTube channel, a course, a piece of merchandise. You have to create something and you have to understand how to sell and market something. Those are the two most important skills any of us can have. If you can learn to create something, and that's why I think the arts are so important. That's why I think technology is so important. If you can create something that people find valuable and you can learn how to tell that story and sell it to them, you'll never be broke. Because if you could sell something, maybe you don't sell your own product initially. Maybe you go learn how to sell something else. Maybe you go learn to flip stuff on eBay, flip stuff on Goat, flip stuff from garage sales, take pictures, look at it on eBay. What's it sold for? Oh, snap. Boom. There we go. You take that money and maybe you pour that money into your own product. Or maybe you pour that money into your Robinhood account, which, by the way, again, 23% since February when I started investing. Right? 23%. And I'm like, gosh, why didn't I start that sooner? Why was I not doing this 5 years ago? Why was I not? I had the app. I just didn't sync my bank information. I was lazy, if I'm keeping it a buck with you guys. And now, what am I investing in? I'm investing in technology companies. I'm investing in the QQQ index fund, which has a culmination of Tesla and Apple, right? I have some money in Amazon. I have some money in solar, right? And then there's another one called TQQQ, which TQQQ is 5x the leverage of QQQ, meaning if QQQ does well, TQQQ does 5 times as well. So if I believe in the American economy and I believe in companies like Apple and I believe in companies like Tesla, right? That if I park my money there, TQQQ does even more. Now there's more risk to it. So Robinhood, I just learned all this stuff. I watch guys like Meet Kevin. I watch people, right? And I'm like, yo, gosh. And here's the crazy part. Imagine if you figured out your burn rate. What rate do you want to live at? What rate do you want to live? How much do you want to make a year? And you got enough in your Robinhood that it paid that dividend for you. Meaning, here's something really practical. I wish we taught kids this stuff, right? And I wish we didn't just teach it, but we actually put the app on their phone, made them sync it up and start. AT&T gives a 7% dividend. A 7% dividend. Think about this with me for a second. Now I'm saying this dividend is going to be around forever, but think about this. What if you had $500,000 in AT&T stock? What if you shopped on eBay, took that money, you had a job that held down your expenses, or better yet, you're living with your mom and you're taking the money from your job and you're pouring it into a Robinhood, you're flipping stuff on eBay, and then you save up and you earn, and by the time you're 25, you have $500,000 sitting in your AT&T account, and that is averaging a rate of 7% dividend, not counting what the stock is going up or down, and that 7% would make you $35,000 a year. Now imagine if that was $1 million. $1 million, if you had $1 million in AT&T stock and it's generating you 7% a year, that's $70,000 a year. Now, 7% is not a great dividend. It's a great dividend in that, like, the amount is a guaranteed amount, but it's not like a wild amount. I'm getting way more than that in all my other stuff. I'm getting 10, 12. To be honest, I'm moving money from the S&P 500 and all these different things, and I'm primarily parking because I'm getting 22% on my money. Right? Imagine if you're getting 25%, or 20, let's call it 20. Imagine if you had $1 million sitting in Robinhood and it was generating you $200,000 a year. How much do you need to really live off a year? By the way, depending on what part of the country you live, after $90,000 a year, your quality of life doesn't really go up that much. You can eat all the food you want to eat. You can travel as much as you want to travel. Right? We're not teaching kids this stuff in school. Right, I'm speaking Latin to half of you guys that are in the stream. Half of you guys already checked out because you're like, "What is this fool talking about?" Right? This is basic. This is basic economics. Okay, so if you want to do upward mobility, if you're poor and you started out poor like I did on welfare, 5 years, son of an alcoholic. My dad wasn't in my life, right? And now we're doing 6 figures, on track to do multiple 6 figures, moving forward, right? And looking at buying a home and paying it off, right? If you want to do that, start with developing scarce skills, okay? Video, design, 3D animation, stuff that could be related to creating something, marketing, right? Learn to sell. Why do I go and do sneakers? I don't make a ton of money off sneakers. I flip sneakers because I need to understand social arbitrage and hype. It helps me understand my own brand. I'm closer to the culture if I'm understanding what off-whites are dropping and why people are into off-whites and why people are into Virgil and why people are into Jerry Lewis. I'm just closer to that culture. I need to be closer because I'm also doing my own line, right? So I'm selling stuff on Goat and I'm selling my own stuff. So those are some really practical, tangible stuff that I want to talk about and encourage you guys, because I think it's important. I think it's important for us just to know what it actually takes. Whether or not you do it or not is on you, but at least you know where the ladder is. And you can't say nobody told me, nobody gave me this information. No, you got the information now. And if you need more, go look at me, Kevin's videos. Look at Dave Ramsey's videos. Go study financial literacy, right? But if we're talking upward mobility, I don't think more education, that's the right kind of education with the right kind of opportunity is what's going to get people to that next level. Let me know what y'all think.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.